over-medicating our kids are killing their souls and definitely numbing their brains. The National Institute of Mental Health are saying now that kids as young as 2 years of age are being diagnosed with attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, ADHD. Can you seriously get somebody for ADHD at 2 years of age? That's incredible. I couldn't believe it. And if it doesn't bother you, the idea that a kid at 2 years of age is being diagnosed with ADHD, I mean, it has to be something wrong with you. And I think that's what we're missing out here in America. It's truly messing with their brains. And I'm about to show you guys a little bit how the situation is getting worse. Studies by the Harvard School of Medicine has stated that continuous increase of over-medication of all these children since 1987. It keeps on going up. It hasn't gone down. Well, we must figure out what we need to do to stop these experiments on our kids. It's very important. Now, there's a way that we can change these issues, and I'm going to break it down a little bit on what we need to do to make sure that stuff like this doesn't continue to happen, and we come up with a solution for it. One of the largest contributors to the issue of our kids being over-medicated are not only the pharmaceutical companies, but also the government. Now, you can ask why and how, and what do you mean the government and pharmaceutical companies? I'm going to read you guys straight up a little thing here that says, under a federal law that was passed in 1997, pharmaceutical companies owning the patent for a medicine can win an extra 6 months of exclusive marketing rights by testing its efficiency in children. What they're saying is that the government gave the pharmaceutical companies an extra 6 months of free publicity for them to do whatever they want as long as they're testing their medicine on children. It's a law that was passed in 1997. Most psychiatric drugs have not been adequately tested in children, and some drug combinations occasionally not even tested in adults. And they're doing it in children. They're putting it on, especially stimulants and antidepressants, which are a lot of the drugs that are used for attention deficit hyperactivity disorder that we give to our kids. They haven't even been tested on adults, and I think that's tremendous. Here are some possible solutions, right? Legislation. What we can do is get the government to be aware that these things are happening and tell them, hey, listen, we need to pass some legislation that says, no, we're not going to use our kids as these drug lab rats. What we're going to do is cut it all out. The problem is that you have all these different people, the lobbyists that go into Washington, D.C., and put money in all of the government people's pockets and say, hey, this is what we're going to do. Thank you very much. So legislation might not really work. Well, the second thing that we can try is regulation, right? Laws. Laws need to be in a book that says, no, our kids will not be used as guinea pigs or a lab rat in the Oval Office. The problem with that is that it's not workable either because we know that money rules Washington, D.C., so we're not going to be able to do it. Now, I'm going to propose a couple things. And maybe one of the ways we can take care of this is by becoming educated. As parents, we can become educated on understanding why these drugs are being given to our kids and how damaging they could possibly be to our kids. So, first we need to understand what the drug does to the body. Will it affect my child's growth? Will it affect their ability to function? Will it affect the development of my child's brain? Now, those are all important questions. I'll give you something from the Harvard School of Medicine that states that depression and other conditions for which the drugs are prescribed may also have long-lasting deleterious effects on psychological and social development and even on brain structure and function. So the drugs that are given to kids 2 years of age now for ADHD can affect the brain, the way they live, the way they develop, and the way they go about doing their kid thing every day. Second, does your child really need that particular drug? Will therapy work? There's a lot of different therapies out there. For you young ladies, you know that we even have shop therapy. Shopping is one of those great little therapies. Might not work for kids, but there's all different types of therapies out there. And the second opportunity is to go get a second opinion. If a psychiatric doctor says that your 2-year-old kid has ADHD and you don't believe it, go get a second opinion. I think that's a good way to do it if you want. It's a choice that you have. Now, the decisions that you make can seriously affect your child. Third, let's think deep inside. Does your serenity have to come at a cost of your child's well-being in the future?
I don't think it has to. It's high cost. Another thing from the Harvard School of Medicine, it says that the high cost of kids surviving every single day that came from ADHD are continuously messing up their psychological and social development in their brain structure. We don't need to put our kids or the future of our kids through that. Remember, our childs have become lab rats for these pharmaceutical companies and the government. We don't need to put them through that. So we can change the government's and pharmaceutical companies' behavior. But how much of a difference can one of us make? How much of a difference can a family make? Well, I can't promise that legislation and the ability of doctors to correctly identify some of the needs of 2-year-olds, like this one right here. But I can tell you what will happen if we don't do something about it, and we continuously allow these pharmaceutical companies and the government to give a 2-year-old some type of antidepressant, ADHD type drugs. Now, here are some statistics that I think are very important. The Centers of Disease Control and Prevention states that approximately 9.5%, that's about 5.4 million children at the age from 4 to 17 years of age, have been diagnosed with ADHD in 2007. I think that's an alarming number. That is a huge number. You're talking about 1 out of 10 kids that you see out on the streets are taking some type of depressant drugs for ADHD. That's incredible. I'll give you some other numbers. The rates of ADHD diagnosis increased an average of 5.5% per year. So it's been going up 5.5% per year from 2003 to 2007. I think it's ridiculous. Now I'll give you something even more alarming and scary. Just in 1 year, from 2007 to 2008, ADHD diagnosis increased from 11 to 13.9%. So it went from an average of 5.5% a year, and it jumped in 1 year from 2007 to 2008 to almost 14%. That's incredible. That's incredible. That's just in the state of Florida. We shouldn't have. This is according to the Centers of Disease Control. The highest rates of parents that are reported that have kids with the ADHD diagnosis were noted among children covered by Medicaid. Well, children with Medicaid were likely they're more likely than uninsured kids to be told that they have ADHD. And the reason for that, I believe, is that because if you're being diagnosed and you have Medicaid or you have insurance, the parents, they don't have to worry about paying full price for that drug. So of course they'll give it to their kid. Other than a parent that has to pay full price, they're a little more cautious about those drugs, and that's when they research those things. So, now that you see the importance, I'm going to ask you again, can one family make a difference? Can a person make a difference? I don't know. To recap some of the things that we talked about, we need legislation. I think legislation would be very important when it comes to that. Education. We need to educate ourselves as parents to make sure that we know what the drugs are about, what the effects are on our kids, and does my kid really need it? And second one is to get a second. The third one is to get a second opinion. Make sure you go out there and you get a second opinion and follow up constantly. So here's the action. All big changes started with one person's idea. This is what I believe. I beg that you stand with me for the future of our children. Be educated about the drugs that we're giving them, and be educated about how it affects their body. Know the drugs contents from the beginning to the end, and search for a second opinion if necessary. Here's a little personal quote that I created myself. Our children are not lab rats for the government and pharmaceutical companies. Thank you.